recruits you will see on the tour. That will be James Kilbane, Johnny Carroll, and Shawnee Vaughan, just to mention a few. The phone number is go over to Brian, Griffin, and Mary and say good morning to them. I know doctors and nurses are up early, so this is not early for you even on a Sunday morning. Brian, how are you?
Good morning, Gerry.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
This is not Galway Bay FM now. We're not quite as sophisticated as that here, so I hope you don't mind all the chaos and confusion that you see around here. And doctors and nurses are not used to that, I know. So please forgive me. Mary, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Gerry. I'm fine, thank you.
Mary, you are especially a wonderful person as far as I'm concerned because your maiden name was Quinn.
That's correct.
Yes. Would you explain to our listeners about that? Pull that microphone close to you.
Okay. Well, my dad is Quinn, and he's from County Longford. He's from a place called Gaig, and my mother was Malloy, and she's from Keele in Achill Island.
That's Steve Malloy's sister.
That's correct, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
How did you get into the medical profession?
Well, I went and I did my nursing education in England, in fact. Mm-hmm. And I did my training in Salford in England. And then I went back to teach midwifery in the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin. And then I got the opportunity to come here to Cleveland to do my master's and my PhD in nursing. And the rest is history. I stayed.
Yeah,
I liked it so much.
And you're at Case...
I'm at Case Western Reserve University. I'm an associate professor there in the nursing school.
Are you sure you want to be talking to me with all those degrees? You know, I don't know if I can even talk to you, either one of you. I'm going to go to Brian. Brian, I know you're a Galway man and very proud of it, but part Mayo. Tell me about your background.
So I was born in Athenry, County Galway, and then when we were 7 or 8, when I was 7, I suppose we moved to Roscommon, and I went to school in Roscommon, and then went back to Galway to medical school, and graduated from NUIG in Galway, and did some of my training there, and after that went to Dublin, and spent a couple of years doing cardiology in Dublin, and then went to London to get some further training at Guy's Hospital. And when I was in London, I thought, well, you know, I probably should go to America and see how are things over there. And there was a very famous cardiologist who was originally from County Sligo, Dr. Swan, who invented a very famous catheter that we use called the Swan-Ganz catheter. And so he was in Los Angeles, so I wrote to him, and he was very kind to me and asked me to come on over, and I worked there for a couple of years, and then went to Boston. And Boston is a great city for training, and it's a great place to be Irish too. So I spent about 4 years in Boston in training, and then I went up to Dartmouth, up to Hanover, New Hampshire, where I worked for a couple of years at the university, or Dartmouth College there. And one of my friends from Boston had come here to Cleveland as a cardiologist, and there was a big changeover at the Cleveland Clinic in cardiology at the time. A very famous cardiologist called Eric Topol had come as head of the department, and my friend asked me to come and take a look, and I said, well, I'll go and take a look in Cleveland, but there's no way I'm going to go to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And I came, and first I can remember driving down Carnegie and saying, wow, you know, this is different.
Different than Boston.
Different than Boston. But I was very impressed with the clinic, as you can imagine, and then I came back a second time, and I really felt it was a fabulous place, and I ended up going. And I've been here since. So
that's
21 years ago. So.
Where did you meet Mary?
So about 3 weeks after I arrived in Cleveland, one of my medical school classmates his wife was a nurse, and she was doing a site visit for a clinical trial here in town, and I knew her very well as well. So they both decided to come and visit because I had just moved here, and Kathleen knew Mary, and you know, in fact, we had both been at their wedding, and though we hadn't met each other at the wedding, so we just met and you know became friends, and that's how we met, and it was. You know, it's been I suppose it's not an unusual story for two people from Ireland to meet in places far away, but it's been a great. It was probably the best thing that's happened to me.
Yeah.
So.
You know, Brian, I found that too. You come over when I came to America, I met people from Westport, from around Ballina, that I never knew back home, and I lived 10 miles from them.
Sure.
Never even knew them,
Yeah.
and met them here in Cleveland.
Sure. Yeah. And that, you know, it's been actually Cleveland is a great city, and you know, part of the greatness for us, I think, is that there is such a big, strong Irish contingent with. You know, roots going back many generations. I think if you ask Mary, I think she'll tell you that you know her family have been coming to Cleveland and in Cleveland for probably more than 100 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right. With the Malloys, their family
Yes,
before
yes,
them, right, Mary?
Both sides of my family, the Malloys and the Whites.
Mm.
So all of my great granduncles and grandaunts on one side, except for my grandmother and her sister, all emigrated here to Cleveland.
That goes back a few years.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I want to come back and talk to you, especially you, Brad. I want to talk to you about when you decided to go on to medical school back in Ireland. Well, we'll do that after.
Yeah, I'd be. Yeah, I mean,
talk about that.
Sure.
Okay. In the meantime, here is. God, that isn't supposed to be in there. There's a polka in the machine. I know that's meant for the Polish program later today. I know that. But instead, we're going to go to the Mulcahy's, and they're going to play some reels. Here they are. Oh, I don't know. I must have put a wrong number in there. Gotta tick them. What have you got? PJ McIntyre's?
I can find something. Yeah, they've. I can.
Yep, you should pull it up.
Yep. They didn't send an email.
What I want to ask you about medicine is, I think it was about the time that you were going to medical school. A lot of young fellas that were going to go on for medicine, I remember this in Mayo, and they all decided to be vets, to go on to be vets. And they found out that was the time when the TB testing of the cattle came in huge. And I remember Vet Kenny was his name. He was a young fella out of veterinary school, and he was making £2,000 a week testing cattle.
Wow.
A week. This was back in the late 50s.
Wow.
It was unheard of.
And you weren't there.
And I said to him, this guy graduated in the top of his class in the British Isles in medicine, and he chose to be a vet because there's so much money to be made. It was huge. I don't know if you were tempted by that or I was that gone by the time.
No, never.
But you're a lot younger. Kenny would be, if he was alive now, he'd be in his late 70s, 80 years old.
Not a lot of people who would. You know, I mean, I think most people who did medicine wanted to do medicine, and you know.
But was it the same for the first year of medical school? Was it the same for a vet and a doctor? Somebody told me it was.
No, for dentistry it is, but not for a vet. I don't think. You know, maybe vet is 5 years. Medicine, at least in my time, was 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you might have had to had the same courses. You know, you had to have. You know, I think mine was the first year that you didn't need Latin.
Is that better, JC?
Much better, yeah.
Oh, you couldn't hear Brian.
Exactly.
It's very nice.
Mary, did you go to the nuns
Oh, yes.
in Dublin?
Yeah. No, in Tuam.
Won't you? What order was that? What order was that?
Presentation.
Oh, my sister went to the Louis nuns in Cuchima.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
No.
I won't be asking you about that.
So Gerry, one of the things I've set up a collaboration with some of our students here going back to NUIG.
We want to talk about that.
But they're going to Tuam to do the clinical part, which is kind of like full circle
Not
for
to
me.
the nuns,
you know
I
what I
hope.
mean? Not to the nuns. No, no.
Alex, are you ready for PJ McIntyre? I'm going to play the first of it.
Yep.
Oh, they are the Mulcahys here on the Irish Show on WHK. Call us 216-901-0945. We'd love to hear from you. Now this message from PJ McIntyre. Stand by.
100,000 welcomes to P.J. McIntyre's Irish Pub and Restaurant, located in the historic Camps Corners district of the West Side, at the corner of Rocky River Drive and Lorraine Avenue. Owners Patrick Campbell and Tom
Did
Lennon
you ever hear
stop by
of that
and
man?
sample our new homemade Irish menu that includes
One of the
multi-Irish
great
breakfast,
Irish
daily
composers.
food specials.
Yes.
P.J. McIntyre's offers live music every Friday and Saturday night, as well as live All-Ireland game football games direct from Ireland throughout the summer.
I thought you went to school to the nuns in Dublin, but you didn't. You went in.
No, I was born in Dublin, lived in Dublin, but I went to boarding school in Tuam, County Galway.
And that was what nuns were there.
The presentation nuns. So
Similar to
Yeah.
the Louis nuns.
it would have been similar to the Louis nuns, yes. Why did I go to the Tuam? I didn't know anybody in Tuam, but my mother and my aunt had gone to Tuam. My uncle had also gone to St. Charlotte's.
Oh, St. Charles, sure. I know.
So there was a big tradition of students from Achill Island going to Tuam, and so that's how they had gone. So I went to Tuam because my mother and my aunt had been there to the presentation.
And then you left there and you went where?
Well, I left there and went back to Dublin. Then I went and I did my nursing in
That's right.
in England.
That's right. In your days, in the going to the nuns in Tuam, was it very severe like it was earlier? Like when I didn't go to the nuns, I went to the brothers, which were quite severe actually.
Well, I wouldn't say it was very severe, but I'd say it was fairly regimented.
Compared
So
to
we
today.
knew how every minute of every day was filled, really, with regards to, you know, what time you got up, what time you had your meals,
Mass every
study.
morning.
Yes, we went to Mass at 7:30 every morning, from what I can remember. We class all day, we class on Saturday mornings, a lot of study time. So it was very regimented.
Mary, you're engaged in a very important program here at Case Western Research. You want to tell us about it?
Well, I've always tried to keep up the links, you know, with Ireland, and one of the programs we have at Case is for our undergraduates. It's a capstone program in their final year where they go to different countries, and I have started a relationship in Ireland so that the students can go there. So we have a memorandum of agreement now with the work that I have done with Galway University, and two of my students are there right now, and we had 2 students there last year. So they take classes at NUIG, and then they do a community experience, and they go for the whole fall semester. So these students are actually doing their community experience in Tuam, which was very interesting when I was setting it up, because I had never been to Tuam since I left there when I did my leaving certificate. And then to go back there and to plan a program for my students was almost like a surreal experience. So the students have been working at the Western Traveller Intercultural and Development Association in Tuam. So they have been working with a registered nurse, developing some programs for the travellers.
Is that the Tinkers?
Yeah, exactly, yes,
Oh,
yes.
my
And
we have become more sophisticated, haven't we?
so they have a huge number of programs in Ireland for them, and particularly in Tuam. And so my students were able to get involved there and also be involved in a research project looking at what can help travellers to go to 3rd level education, because travellers are now going to University College Galway, and they are getting undergraduate degrees and masters. And the students actually worked with a master's student who was from the traveller community. So that was a very interesting experience. I also have a student in Cork this year, because we have also now developed a programme in Cork, and I'm in the middle of organising to further expand the programme to University College Dublin and also to Trinity College Dublin. So hopefully next year we'll have students going to 4 Irish universities, which, you know, will be absolutely fantastic. The students love going to Ireland. They like it because everybody speaks English. They feel it's very, very vibrant, and I think these students are great ambassadors for Ireland when they come back.
Now, at what level do they go from here?
They're in their just going into their final year in their undergraduate program, so they're in their early 20s. So for many of them, it's their first experience going abroad. The nice thing about Case Western Reserve University is that the university do pay the tuition for the students at the university overseas. The students unfortunately have to, you know, they have the accommodation costs and they have their flights, so it is an experience that we would like to have available for all students, but of course it depends on, you know, whether the students can really afford to spend money going abroad, because while they're over there, they're not going to be working, which they might be if they stayed here. So we're always looking for, you know, people who might be interested in supporting such a program, especially as these students, you know, they get such a fabulous experience about Ireland while they're there.
Sounds like a great program.
It is a fantastic
We'll
program.
talk more about it. Can you stick around?
Certainly I will.
Now this message, stand by. That is the great James Kilbane. You'll be able to see him if you come to Ireland on our tour next Easter. He's going to be performing at the Bunratty Hotel with us, so make sure you get on the tour right away. Make that phone call, and we hope to see you on it. We're really looking forward to that. I'm going to be telling you more about it. It's 8 minutes past 11 o'clock. My 2 granddaughters are in the studio this morning also, so one of them has consented to send a greeting to her grandmother. Now, and her name is Cece, and she has rehearsed this.
Hi Grandma, it's Cece. Have a great time at the radio show. See you soon. Scott says hi too.
Very good. You're a radio star already. Perfect. Couldn't do any better myself. Our phone number. That is the great James Kilbane. You'll be able to see him if you come to Ireland on our tour next Easter. He's going to be performing at the Bunratty Hotel with us, so make sure you get on the tour right away. Make that phone call, and we hope to see you on it. We're really looking forward to that. I'm going to be telling you more about it. It's 8 minutes past 11 o'clock. My 2 granddaughters are in the studio this morning also, so one of them has consented to send a greeting to her grandmother. Now, and her name is Cece, and she has rehearsed this.
Hi Grandma, it's Cece. Have a great time at the radio show. See you soon. Scott says hi too.
Very good. You're a radio star already. Perfect. Couldn't do any better myself. Our phone number in the Irish community, both of you are so well known. Brian, I want to talk to you for a second about medicine at the Cleveland Clinic and medicine, we'd say, at a hospital in Ireland. And there's some really good hospitals in Ireland. But the Cleveland Clinic is kind of the gold standard of hospitals in the world today, would you say?
I certainly think so. We provide incredible care. We've been voted the #1 hospital in heart disease for 20 years running. I'd like to say it's, you know, just shortly after I arrived, it reached the #1 spot, and it's stayed there ever since. But it's we have a great group of people. But you know, we have. I was head of our training program in heart disease for young doctors coming up in heart disease for 18 of those years, and had the good fortune to train a lot of Irish doctors,
That's what I was going to ask
many
you
of whom have gone back to Ireland. So probably around a quarter of all of the cardiologists in Ireland would have had some of their training at Cleveland Clinic. So I think there's very good medicine practice in Ireland. I think things are tough at the moment because of budgetary constraints, but you know, certainly emergency care is very good in Ireland, and the people, I think, should feel reassured that if they go to Ireland, that they'll get very well looked after if they have any problems. In terms of what we can do at Cleveland Clinic, there are very few places in the world that can do some of the things that we can do. That's why people come from all over the world to us, and we're very proud of that, but we like to share our knowledge with other people, and it's been great that we've had the opportunity to share that with so many people from Ireland. Let me say we have two young heart doctors at Cleveland Clinic now who are with Dermot Phelan and Pat Collier, who are both Pat's from Limerick and Dermot's from Abbey Leaks, and it's been great having them with us. They're on staff and they're doing a fantastic job working with us here. And you know, obviously we got there's a very big Irish American community in Cleveland. It's been a great honor for me to participate in the care of a lot of those over the years, and I've gotten to know so many of the Irish community, both as friends and sometimes as patients, though often, fortunately, not as patients.
How are the doctors in Ireland selected to go to the Cleveland Clinic? Do they apply for it, and who pays for it? Does the college in Ireland, does the medical school in Ireland pay for it?
So most of the doctors who would come, say, to do cardiology at the clinic would already have done most of their training and would come over for a year or two to get some advanced training. And there are some scholarships in Ireland that pay for people to come for a year, often though the clinic will pay for some of those years. And like I said, we get the best and the brightest, so we're very happy to have had those people. In fact, we have another young man who just joined us from Roscommon, who's originally from Roscommon, Roger Byrne, who's doing his training with us at the moment. It's not just in cardiology, it's actually in lots of other areas. A number of the main heart surgeons in Ireland also did some of their training at Cleveland Clinic. A lot of the vascular surgeons, a lot of the surgeons for bowel and a lot of different areas have received their training. I mean, the clinic is considered one of the top postgraduate medical training centers in the world.
Supposing they want to stay here after they do this course, can they stay, or is that a special application that's required?
It's certainly feasible to stay, but it's not easy. You know, you have to do a lot of additional exams to stay in the United States, to get licensed in the United States, and then to get licensed as a specialist in the United States. It's, you know, quite an undertaking to do that.
Is it competitive like other fields where they look at the number of doctors that's doing that particular work here and they say we don't need any more here, or we do need more?
Yes, I certainly do that, but you know, I think people don't realize that there's a big gap in the numbers of doctors that are produced in the United States and the actual needs. Remember, the population's gone up an awful lot in the United States. It's, you know, over 320 million now, and the numbers of doctors really haven't gone up that much. So there is, and has been over many years, a reliance on foreign doctors coming in, and you know, I think we're very lucky that over the years have been a lot of superb Irish doctors who come here. My approach to that, though, is that, you know, I've been fortunate to be here, but I also want to give back to Ireland, and one of the reasons I've been involved in training Irish doctors is to give back to Ireland and make sure that, you know, we can provide training here, and that people bring back things to Ireland that are of great value to the community there. And I think that's been a great passion of mine and great joy of mine over my 20+ years here. So we've had, you know, I go back to Ireland a number of times a year. I speak over there quite a bit, and have had a lot of not just in terms of medical training, but also with innovations, with companies, medical companies in Ireland who want to get involved in startups in the United States. We've been very involved with Enterprise Ireland in trying to get them to come to Cleveland and do some of their development work here, and we've been successful in quite a number of instances. I mean, they're great. I don't think people may be aware that, you know, Ireland is the medical device hub of Europe, and all of the main medical device companies in the world have their European headquarters in Ireland. And that has set up an awful lot of young Irish graduates have gone and worked with them, and then have learned the basics and have gone and set up recognized individual things that weren't being developed by their parent company, and have gone up and set up companies of their own. And Enterprise Ireland's job is to try and help them develop new jobs and a whole new strategy. And Cleveland Clinic has been involved in that over the last 5 to 7 years, and it's been a great pleasure for me to be involved in that. We have our Innovation Summit coming up at the clinic, in which we have the leaders of healthcare, whether it's in hospitals or medical device companies or pharmaceutical companies. We have that at the end of this month. It'll bring well over 1,000 people. It's probably the best medical innovation summit in the world, and so fortunately we'll have quite a few people over from Ireland for that, and I'm certainly involved in trying to get them involved in, you know, if they have questions about how their product might work or whatever, we try to line them up with physicians or nurses or whoever caregivers at Cleveland Clinic that might be able to help them or help them improve their product. So I think is one of the great things that we can do as Irish people here, that we can provide a nexus for Ireland. And, you know, we want to get the next generation of smart Irish people coming to Cleveland, not just going to Boston or to the West Coast. We'd like to see them here.
Yes, we would. But Brian, I want to publicly thank you for working on the innovation and the health panel at the Mayo Society event that we just concluded. And I thought that was very informative. I sat in on it when you and Dr. Graham and the people from Ireland. I thought it was just a wonderful opportunity for people to hear what you do and what Dr. Graham does at the clinic.
Well, it was a great pleasure. It was a great, I think that convention was wonderful. We had lots of great people. There were a number of people from Mayo, from the Hospice Foundation, and from the Foundation to help people who have cancer with the Society in Galway, which was Richard Flaherty. That was excellent, and I think we had a great discussion about, you know, how things, the needs for medicine are the same the world over. I mean, they're you know, there's no difference if you have heart disease or cancer in Ireland. What you need isn't going to be very much different from what you need here. And, you know, I think people underestimate the sophistication of medicine in Ireland. I mean, there are some great things about, they have done a great job in making sure, for instance, that the provision of cancer care has really improved, and it's very, although it's, you know, in some very specialized centers now, the kind of care that's been given is magnificent. And I think the same is true of heart care. There, you know, there's one of the discussions we had, you may remember, is, you know, the centralization of, you know, making sure that that you have all the resources usually means that you have to go to a bigger center, and how that feeds back with the local hospital. You know, so one of the issues is that as medicine gets more technologically advanced, fewer and fewer places can provide the real cutting-edge kind of care. And then how do you make sure that you get people to the point of care, that you have good enough roads or good enough transport with helicopters or planes. We are very involved in that here in the Cleveland community, and, you know, that's something that's just beginning in Ireland. But I think, you know, in the end, that will be for the betterment of everybody.
Mm-hmm. The accessibility in Cleveland to great medical care, to world-class medical care, is extraordinary.
I think people, from Cleveland who haven't lived outside of Cleveland probably underestimate how lucky they are.
Yes.
To have such a level of care that in every area, I mean, not just in our own facilities, which are phenomenal, but throughout the region. It's just probably one of the top places in the world to get your health care, and to get it fast, and to get it actually relatively cheaply compared to most places. And you know, I've had patients who've moved to Cleveland because of the quality of the care here. It's like, I've also known people who've moved here because we've had such a great orchestra. There are actually people who live in Cleveland because the orchestra, they're so into music that they want to be here because of the orchestra. Not just because of the sunny North Coast, but because of the orchestra.
We're going to talk more with Brian and Mary, but first, this, stand by. But he was still at the top of his career. I think he was only about 61, 62 when he died, but he was still going strong.
Very beloved and very charitable man.
Very charitable. Give tons of money to charity. But anyway, here's Joe. You might remember this one. In fact, I put this on today because I knew you guys were coming in and you'd remember him. This is not one of his Irish ones, but it's he was a rocker. He was kind of the Elvis Presley of Ireland, I would say, right? Wouldn't you say? Or the Bruce Springsteen. Here he is. Here's Joe Dolan. Tell me what you think of this guy singing. And they now reside here in Cleveland. You mentioned, Mary, how you make several trips back to Ireland, and you have the program going between Case and Ireland.
Yes.
How could students, anyone that's listening now, avail themselves with that if they're in a nursing program, or do they have to be going to Case Western Reserve?
Well, right now, yes, they would have to be going to Case Western Reserve. It's part of our, it's part of the senior year program where our students go abroad. You know, students in many different university programs, they want to go to have a study abroad experience, but in many cases, as is our own, the nursing curriculum is so full, we have this special program developed so our students can go in the fall semester. Some of them go in summer, but right now, for going to Ireland, it's in the fall semester. It's a fabulous opportunity because when they go to the university over there, we arrange that they have accommodation on campus because we want them to mix with the Irish students and have the experience there. And they usually take 2 or 3 classes at the university. So, for example, in Galway and in Cork right now, the students are taking at least one nursing course. And then we like them to take some course that's to do with Irish culture. It could be Irish dancing, it could be Irish language, they could learn Gaelic, whatever they would like to do that would fit in with their schedule. But we want them to, you know, develop a love for the country while they're there for the semester. And then the thing that's unique about our program is that they do this 300 hours community engagement experience. So, for example, the student that is in Cork right now, she's spending time going to different areas around Cork City with a public health nurse. So seeing what happens in public health in Ireland, you know, how the children are vaccinated in the schools, how the children are vaccinated in the public health clinics, because they are things that are very different from what happens here in the US. So they get a very broad experience. The students in Tuam, when they were there, they spent time, as I said, with the Irish travellers, and they also spent time with the public health nurse in Tuam. So they saw what happens, you know, what is the role of the public health nurse in Ireland. So again, they get, as I say, a very broad, very special experience. The students last year that went to Tuam, when they interviewed 15 travellers who had spent time in third level education. Some of them were at the university, some of them were in technical education, but they found out from them what were the things that would facilitate them going on for further education and what were the barriers. And our students when they come back from this experience, they have to develop a poster, and we have a poster day at the university here in Cleveland at Case Western Reserve University. And the students from all the different experiences globally display these posters. And the students who spent time at Galway University and in Tuam, they actually won first prize at Case Western Reserve for their poster, which was a fantastic achievement for them.
Tell me, any male nurses in the program?
Oh yes, we do have male nurses in all our programs.
Mm-hmm.
So in America, probably the percentage of male nurses in nursing is around about 10%, and our programs are running about that. We have one program where we have more males, and it's a very unique program, but ties into what Brian was talking about with regard to getting good access quickly to healthcare. We have a master's in flight nursing. So these are students who do a master's in acute care nursing or critical care nursing, but they also do extra courses to learn about caring for patients during transportation in the helicopter. And these nurses will also do flight hours, learning how to fly the helicopter. So it's a very, very specialized program. But these nurses, they get hired very quickly at many of the hospitals within the Cleveland area, because we have a very big flight program of patients being transported in for specialized care.
Mary, is it fair to assume that nurses today are probably as qualified as doctors were like 50 years ago with their knowledge of medicine?
I would disagree that it's 50 years ago. I think that the type of information and knowledge that nurses have is different. The basic sciences, I think, is the same as what medical students would be learning today. But the way that they are learning to care for patients, remember, patients are much sicker now than they ever were. So the complexity of care is what nurses are learning to deal with. How do they manage to care for patients who have many different acute conditions as well as underlying chronic conditions at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that nurses, have a very high level of knowledge. I would disagree that it's like the same as what doctors had 50 years ago by any stretch of the imagination. I think getting into nursing is very, very competitive now. And we're very lucky that in our undergraduate program, our students are getting, probably 3 times as much clinical hours as many other programs in the US. So the students are very well prepared for caring.
However, the level of education required today to be a nurse or a doctor has to be an awful lot higher than it was years ago.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
And Brian,
very,
would you
very
say that
high.
in the medical, in the doctor profession also?
I think so. I mean, I think in the United States, it's it's very hard to get into medical school. We have our own medical school now at Cleveland Clinic, which is a college of Case Western, and the SAT scores to get in there, or MCAT scores, are just through the roof. It's just virtually, I don't know how anybody can get in there. But it's it's tuition free, so it attracts the best and the brightest. The same is true in Ireland. It requires only the best people. It's the most sought after area, so it's a national competition to get into medicine, and it's been that way for many years. So, but before that, people got in. In 50 years ago, people didn't get into medicine. Most people didn't have the opportunity to do medicine. They didn't have the money to go to university, or unless they were very fortunate and had scholarships, they didn't go. So it wasn't open to everybody. Now it is open to everybody, both here and in Ireland, and it does attract the best and the brightest, which is great.
That's a good thing. Alex, what do we got? Hour now.
study hard and follow your dream. I think medicine is fantastic. It's a career I've really enjoyed, and you know, there's something in medicine for everybody. So
It's a calling, isn't it, Brian?
it's a calling. It's a vocation in its own way, but
Yeah.
it's very rewarding in terms of the care that you give. So.
And Mary, likewise, I'm sure.
I would say nursing is a fabulous career. There are so many different opportunities. You know, it's a whole career that can take you from the bedside to the community to the critical care unit, and you know, fabulous opportunities to travel.
Okay. Well, thank you both for coming in this morning and spending some time with us. I think it's a great opportunity for people in the community to know how our Irish people in the medical profession, what you do, and the great care you give to the community. Thank you both.
Thanks
Great
very
having
much, Gerry. It's been
Thank
a
you,
great
Gerry.
pleasure.
Great having you with us.
Thank you, Gerry.